Welcome to Elijah Clark State Park. We're located on the western shore of beautiful Clark Hill Reservoir near Lincoln, Georgia. Our 447-acre park includes camping, fishing, cottages, picnic shelters, a white sand swimming beach, boat ramps, and miniature golf. Prior to 1773, this part of Georgia belonged to the Creek and Cherokee Indian Nation. In 1773, a treaty was signed giving up this land to the Europeans. Elijah Clark and some 40 other families came in and settled this part of Georgia. Elijah Clark State Park is named after General Elijah Clark, who was a fine frontiersman and became a Revolutionary War hero. The Elijah Clark Memorial Home is a replica of the home that General Clark built near this area. Although the dog-trot construction that you see is very typical of the late 1700s, Elijah Clark had built a very large full-room dog-trot cabin for his home. It was referred to as Clark's Fort. The front two rooms of the cabin are paneled in maple the way you see this living room has been done. It was very unusual for a frontier home. You'll notice the windows are barred. That was for additional protection. There are also outside shutters that could be closed during an attack or in the winter to preserve heat. You'll also notice the gun ports. There's one in every outside wall in every room. Elijah Clark built his home in an area that was hostile, and he knew he was going to have to defend the home at all times. The central hallway through the center of the cabin is called a dog trot. It had many uses. One was to be able to house animals. A rope could simply be pulled across either end, and you were easily able to keep cows and horses safe under the same roof as the family. This is the workroom. Hannah, Elijah's wife, would have spent much time in a room like this one. We've dedicated this room to the textile production that was necessary in most homesteads in the late 1700s. Hannah Clark's big goal was to keep all 8 of her children with one outfit on and one to spare. It was on a loom like this one that Hannah Clark produced the linen that she used to make Elijah 2 very beautiful linen shirts that she was quite proud of. So proud, in fact, that when the Tories began overrunning some of the nearby homesteads, she took the shirts and buried them in the smokehouse floor. Later, when the Tories did overrun her home, they questioned her children about where the money and the treasures were buried. It was the linen shirts in the smokehouse floor that the children led the Tories to. That was their mother's treasure. Although Elijah Clark was well known as a frontiersman and Indian fighter, his wife Hannah was quite a character herself. She was a well-to-do Virginia lady and faithfully followed Elijah into the frontier and maintained their home wherever they went. She fought off several Indian attacks and Tory attacks here at the home alone. In fact, she was here alone in 1779 when the Tories overtook the home and burned it. She successfully escaped with all 8 children and fled to Freeman's Fort, where she quietly waited on Elijah to return. Elijah Clark designed his home where his home family slept upstairs in a sleeping loft like you see here. The beds were a simple construction. The ropes across the bottom, as you see, were used instead of springs. As long as the ropes were tight, the bed was level and comfortable. And that's where the saying sleep tight comes from. It refers to being comfortable at night. The old story goes that if you came to Hannah's house and overstayed your visit, she would loosen the ropes during the day, therefore making you uncomfortable at night. Most of the beds have hay mattresses. This is where the saying hit the hay comes from. Before you lay down at night, you might beat the hay to fluff it up to make your bed more comfortable. Although it must have been quite uncomfortably hot in the summertime, the loft provided a lot of warmth in the wintertime, with heat rising from the stairwell and from a trap door to allow heat to rise from both downstairs fireplaces. This is the kitchen cabin. Hannah Clark was a real well-to-do lady, and she believed that all ladies should cook inside instead of outside over a campfire. The kitchen was the center of the homestead. Cooking was always done in the fireplace, as you see here. The 2 cranes allow the pots to be swung back and forth over the fire. Most of your actual cooking was done out on the hearth. That's why it's referred to as hearth cooking. The breakfast meal very often consists of cornmeal mush and maybe some apple cider. Lunch depended on whatever the boys might have killed. It would include a stew or maybe even a roast occasionally. And at supper, you were back to the cornmeal mush. Here you see a typical midday meal being prepared. The Dutch oven, which has coals on bottom and top, is being used to bake yeast bread. The bed was in the kitchen for childbirthing and doctoring. Although they had no concept of germs, by separating the sick children from the rest of the family, Hannah prevented the rest of the family from catching many illnesses. Elijah Clark was involved in most of the battles in Georgia and South Carolina during the Revolutionary War. This home represents a very important part of our heritage. Please come by and visit with us. We'd like to share it with you.